Here we are then. Steve, Yates Jettings. Tell us a little about yourself.
I've been going, 15 years now. Got a drainage company. I've always been based in Doncaster, but we work all over the country now.
I would say nationwide, aren't you?
Yeah, nationwide now. We've been sort of slowly growing over the last, 6-7 years. Sort of stepped my game up a little bit and got more people involved, working bigger toys, bigger equipment, better equipment.
So let's take it back then, because we met. I mean, we've known each other for years, right? And obviously, it was a local kind of like working relationship. We were at local networking events. Your dad were involved in the business.
Yeah, my dad was involved in the business when we first started. He used to do the sort of the boring networking, and I used to go and do all the fun networking, to be honest. But we've sort of known each other roundabout for probably 20 years.
Yeah.
Give or take a little bit, mutual friends, but.
Showing our age here, mate.
I know. And then
I'll edit that and say 5 years.
And then networking wise, that was probably 10 years ago, I think.
Yeah.
And then
Back at Trades Hub, wasn't it?
Yeah, Trades Hub in Sheffield.
That was Craig Wilkinson.
Yeah. And then the Trades Hub
and James Ashford.
Yeah. And then we sort of bumped into each other, and then bumped into each other, and then we realised we realised we're quite local to each other, and then realised we were both within streets of each other, and then we sort of always sort of kept in touch. Really.
Yeah. I mean, listen, from my perspective, I can be biased on why it's important to use a drainage company, right? Because we're in construction, we do builds, we know why it's important. But why don't you take this opportunity to give us a bit of a, if you can, I don't know, little broken down kind of brief description of why it's important for people to, keep their drains well maintained.
Well, I'm definitely biased because obviously that's what I do, but it's always good to get a second independent opinion on it. People install, or even new builds. New builds, everything needs a clean before you get it. It's like washing a car before you buy it. It's just you make sure it's doing what it's supposed to do. Old buildings have probably never been cleaned, never been surveyed. So you just want it to be the best it can be before it's yours. So if there is a problem, you can get in front of it. It's a lot easier to fix it when you know it's there rather than it just breaks while you've got it. So if we're doing a pre-adoption survey, so we survey it before you buy it. If we survey it before it gets given to you.
Yeah.
It's just, and then as a quality control, if you're getting it installed, it's always good to check it to make sure everything went in correctly. So you think you've done a good job. It's just to prove to the customer that you've done a good job as well.
Yeah.
So we'll come in independently and say, this is what you've got. So it might be a genuine mistake that, I don't know, stones have gone in, and it might be just a simple, get the stones out.
Yeah.
But if that is left in there, that little mistake at the beginning is going to cost somebody money at the end and the inconvenience of it. So we just try to get in front of any potential issue that you might have.
Yeah.
So the surveying side of the business is mental, crazy at the minute. We're all over the country doing it, and we're doing it from everybody from the NHS to a local builder.
Yeah.
So that's what we're trying to push forward, it's just to get in front of a potential problem.
Yeah. So breaking it down, we know there's new build, right? So it's easy for me and you to talk. It's our lingo. We're doing it every day. You come onto our sites. Before we even put a spade in ground, you check it out and make sure that we know what a desktop survey tells us is there. You'll then confirm that. So we've got the reality, we've got the CCTV footage. We then do a build. You then come back out before we hand the builds over. And again, you do call it a deep clean if you want. You take out any debris and you make sure the falls are there. You make sure everything's perfect and it's ready to go. It's live.
Yeah, so we survey it in a thing called WinCam. WinCam is a program that the water authorities acknowledge and will accept. So we'll clean, survey, and then once it's coded, you'll get the report as a customer, and then you will then send that over to the water authorities. So they will then see the quality that you've installed it, and they'll know it's to that standard, and they will then adopt it back to, so it'll be on their paperwork, and they'll accept it back, and then they will take it with their responsibility once it's coded.
Once it's adopted.
Once it's adopted, yeah.
So just take it back slightly then. So obviously we bought a plot of land, and again I know we're talking hypothetically because we do this, but for the purpose of the education, so everybody knows, we'll acquire a plot of land. This is new build now. Acquire a plot of land. You guys come in and do the prove, show and tell kind of thing, and we say, okay, this is what we're working with. Question, I know the answer, but let's answer it anyway. Do you provide the drainage surveys, and again, do you provide then the drainage calculations for what is going to be on there?
A lot of the times they'll have a proposed drainage plan.
And that's done by
the engineers. So we'll get a plan of what you've worked to. So
the proposed kind of like layouts and whatnot.
Yeah, so they've already installed a lot of it, if not all of it.
Yeah.
We'll then take that plan, work through the list of what's there, both foul and surface.
Yeah.
And we'll work and clean all the way down, and then survey. So on the survey, we'll mirror the Mano 1 to Mano 2, Mano 2 to Mano 3. So we'll then mirror that on our report. So then it will show 1 to 2, 2 to 3. It will show a condition, depth, condition, size. So if it says it's a 100 millimeter pipe, it will then tell you on the report that it is a 100 millimeter pipe, the depth of it, the fall, and the general condition of it. So we'll clean before we record, so then you get a clean recording. So there's no stones, no bits of wood, no bits of sand, all that sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, we'll come on to the foul and rainwater in a minute. But the one thing that gets overmissed, and we're still a new build here, upon an installation, because that is a completely different kettle of fish. It's such an important factor from a drainage survey perspective, from post-install, that it's installed correctly, isn't it? Because, I mean, if the pipe's not, say, deburred correctly and it's installed like rough tradesman, for example, that can cause every problem. So if hair was to go down it with the build-up, are these going to be able to clog in the drains? Yeah,
it will show if it's been installed correctly. So it'll show if there's any displacements, so if there's a gap in the pipe.
Yeah.
Especially if there's a bend in the pipe and it hasn't been pushed up correctly. It will show an open gap. So basically anything that goes down there could potentially get stuck if it's got water in the pipe, even though we've cleaned it and there's still water in the pipe, it means it hasn't got a fall. So it means they haven't installed it correctly. So
let's just break that down just for those who don't know. So what do we mean by fall? I know it's easy for us to
So water needs to run downhill. If it's installed incorrectly, either the water's not flowing at all or it's flowing back. So it means any water that will go in will fall the wrong way. So if it needs to go A to B, it's be trying to fall back to A. And
so from house to mains drains, it's got to go from house's high point, drains low point. We're talking fall from house, so that A and B being drained. So that's the fall. It should go down.
So if that's completely level, it means water's not going to flow towards the main, away from the property. If it's really bad, it will then come out of the property, stop halfway up the pipe, and then flow back towards the property.
Okay.
So that's where the blockages will start coming.
We're on to blockages. Let's do blockages because this is a bit of a fun part, right? Nobody likes a blocked drain, and we've all been there, yeah? So, what are the most common causes of blockage, drain blocks?
Just misuse. Misuse.
Such as?
The dreaded baby wipes. Everybody blames the baby wipes, but it's modern living and old pipe work. A lot of
before we get past that, give us some dirty ones. What's the worst blockage you've had?
God, there's too many. I'm lucky because I have lads who work for me now, so they get more than me. But it's just people say they don't use them. They don't use baby wipes. We don't use them. We don't use them. And then you go into the house and there's baby wipes on the back of the toilet, and there must have been a sale on because we've filled 10 black bags full of baby wipes before.
10 black?
And and then you take pictures and you send it back to the letting agency, whoever owns the house or whatever, and they still swear blind. It's not them, it's somebody else's. But obviously
It's obvious where it's come from.
Mainly in the older properties, the pipe work is salt glaze. It's the old pottery pipe, and it's all bumps and lumps in there, and anything that catches. So you've got all this modern living, as in wipes and facial wipes and the wipes that you clean your bathroom with, and then they flush them, and they get caught on a snag somewhere, and they just build up and build up.
I mean, it's not rocket science, is it? You think about a log flume, a water park.
Yeah.
You know, if the water dries up, you don't go down. You literally stick to the pipe.
Yeah, and if there's not enough water at the top, you're not going to get it to the bottom.
It's not rocket science, is it?
So if you're putting stuff down that, once the water flows away and it sits, we've had nappies down there.
Wow. It was flushed a nappy.
Yeah.
What's the worst thing that you've pulled out of a drain?
Probably nappies, to be fair. It's because it's amazing
nappies.
how it's amazing how they even get down there.
Don't they swell up?
Yeah.
How are they?
And so does other things, but there's yeah, it's a podcast. We don't go into that. But yeah, there's some grim things that we find. It's that
I mean, we'll come on to the renovation properties because they're established properties. I'm talking now. You do a lot for the NHS and you do a lot of their drainage work. So we'll come to some grim stuff in a second.
Yeah.
Going back to falls now.
Yeah.
So, what are some of the most common? We spoke about blockages. What are some of the most common poor installations that you've seen that cause further blockages? Is it like a maintenance manhole chambers?
Well, the modern ones, a lot of the new sites we go on, like 9 times out of 10, they're okay. They get mud, a lot of mud in there because a lot of the sites we go on are building sites.
Yeah.
All the pipe work goes in, chamber lids aren't on, and we get a lot of mud. So we could bring out 3, 4, 5 tons of mud out of brand new pipe work.
Yeah.
So we could, but then a lot of that all goes into the chambers. So we spend half of the time clearing the chambers out before we even get onto the pipework. And then once we jet it and clear it, then we put the cameras in. And a lot of the times it's good. A lot of the contractors I work for, they do install good quality work. Yeah. And the lads know what they're doing. It's the chambers are the ones that let all sites down. If they could keep the chambers clear, a lot of the mud won't go into the lines.
So I've noticed now there are some sort of someone's got a pattern on this chamber thing. It's like the bucket you put, and then it's got a lid on the top, hasn't it?
Muck stop.
That was it. Muck stop. Yeah. Pretty good. Pretty good
fantastic,
system.
Actually. I was talking to them the other week on LinkedIn.
Do you stock them?
We've started to try to push them because we don't do the install.
Yeah.
I think if I did the install, I'd definitely have some of them on shelf because the price to go out and clear them would be shadowed by the purchase for these because they're reusable. It's not a one shot.
It's like you say, you're more about the prevention, right?
Yeah. So if they can stop them all going into the gullies and more into the chambers, then when we get there, we're literally lifting the basket out and surveying.
Once over, yeah.
So a 4-day job would turn into a 2-day job.
Yeah.
So
saving money there.
So you definitely saving money. We've had one site fairly recently, and we was on there for nearly a month, and we probably took out 100 tons.
100 tons on a new build site?
Yeah, but it wasn't houses, it was an industrial estate, and it was some big pipe work, but these were nearly a metre wide, 1,000 mil wide, and they were 90% full. We couldn't even get the jetter heads in. We had to dig them out by hand and then start jetting. So
let's talk jetting. Some people might not know what jetting is. We talk like we know it. All right. Talk us through a little bit of jetting. So you survey, you sweep, you send cameras down, but what's jetting?
Jetting it's high pressure water. Basically, you have a machine, an engine and a pump, basically, in a frame that's inside a van or the bigger versions are like on a truck. And basically, it pushes water through a pipe and it has a different heads on. And it basically jetting, as in jetting water. So you put the different heads on, different heads do different things, but basically water comes out of the jetter head. It looks a bit like a rocket on the end when you can see it. that will go up the pipe. It'll self-propel itself up the pipe.
Yep.
And then as soon as you get to a blockage, either goes into the blockage and disperses it, or it goes over stones, sand, and as you're pulling it back, it will bring the stones towards you.
Back with it.
So then on the bigger trucks that we have that has a suction pipe in, so as you're pulling it back into the chamber, it goes straight up the suction, goes into the tank, and it stops it going further down the line. The unblocking of drains when they're blocked with wipes, that sort of thing. Jet ahead again, goes into it, goes into the blockage, pumps it, the water then stops propelling it, and then it dilutes it, and then it will just then release. So then that's when you get all the good videos of all the good stuff. So yeah, jetting is a way of cleaning a pipe through high pressure water. Is the easiest way to describe it.
Perfect. Okay, let's move into then the different types of pipes that we survey.
Yeah.
So we spoke about foul and surface water.
Yeah.
What's the difference for those that don't know?
Foul is anything that comes from the property, i.e. from toilets, sinks, kitchen sink, dishwashers, anything that will be contaminated with any sort of cleaning products or toilet products.
Excrement.
Yes, all the good stuff. So then that will then go down into the sewers, and the sewers will then eventually go to a pumping station to be cleaned.
Yep.
Surface water is anything that takes rainwater, basically. So off a roof will then go into a gully. Gully then either goes into surface water, and it will eventually go into a water course before it gets cleaned.
Yep.
So you shouldn't, and you legally can't put foul into surface.
Yeah.
So if you decide to run a washing machine out of your garage into the closest gully, you need to make sure that gully goes to a foul, because it will then be cleaned. If you do it the wrong way round, you're washing your socks, and the soapy water will then end up in a ditch or end up in a river. And one, it's not good, both legally, environmentally. You shouldn't do it. But that's probably one of the most common things we find.
Yeah, so let's clear that up a little bit then. So we've got foul water, it says what it says on the tin.
Yes.
Right? It's anything that's been contaminated, anything that's not clean water, assuming that the water coming from the sky is by definition clean.
Yeah.
So that's the foul stuff. The clean water is exactly what it says on the tin. It's clean surface water, so if it hits the surface, it then drains away. So it can go into a system which can go into a soakaway.
Yeah.
Soakaway, you can explain in a second, or attenuation, or it can actually go into the system which is the clean.
Yeah.
So talk to us a little bit about the difference of those then. Soakaways, attenuation.
Yeah, soakaways is exactly what it sounds like. It's rainwater, comes down the pipe, goes into the ground, and then goes into, I think it's 5 meters from a property off the top of my head.
Yeah.
Normally, the modern ones go into crates that are in the garden, and then you dig a hole, the crates go in, and it soaks slowly into the ground. The older versions of that is take away the crates and fill it with stones. is the older way of doing it. They have lots of different versions of that, but it's pretty much the same, just either bigger or
It's like
smaller.
a big sponge underground, isn't it? It holds water for as long as it can. So
Yeah,
you hold the water
yeah.
on your land before it leaves and goes somewhere else.
It's
to
one of the
reduce
main
flooding.
reasons why people are flooding at the moment, because we're having so much rain. It hasn't had time to soak away.
Yeah.
It goes into the ground. It might soak away a metre, and then it rains again. So the first metre hasn't gone. So people are flooding because the ground they're in is so wet.
Saturated.
They just it can't go.
Yeah.
So the soakaways we're getting now on new build sites are massive tanks that are underneath, mainly in the main road sections or where they park the cars.
Yeah.
So it's just like a lot of the builder sites we're getting now, the whole car park is one big, underneath the car park are all full of crates, and it's one massive soakaway because it's preempting what it's going to get.
Underground swimming pool, but no one's going to swim in it.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So it's one massive soakaway that is big enough to take. It's been worked out properly and it's been calculated.
Calculated and whatnot, yeah. Okay, so I mean, we've installed soakaways. You will see these now traditionally on a new build or an extension where possible, because it is a method of holding water and retaining it on your land. It's normal now.
Yeah.
These things do need to be taken into consideration when you're doing things like extensions or new build. But again, they'll be designed by certain engineers. They'll do the calcs.
Yeah.
The one that really interests me a lot is the attenuation. So, firstly, tell us a bit about attenuation, and then what's the main difference between the two?
One's
Because they're both through the same ring, right? They've both got crates. One retains the water, and the other one gets it into outlet. But
one has to fill up, basically. One goes to ground, and it does only go to ground. The other one will fill up to a certain amount. A little bit will go to ground. Well, I say a little bit. A percentage will go to ground.
Yeah.
The rest will fill up and then either go away and either go into a main or an existing surface line, and then go off site, and off it will go on its travels. The other one will fill up and soak away to a certain percentage, and then some of it will then go into a combined system.
yeah,
So a combined system takes both rainwater and foul. So one will just slow down the surface water going in. So you're not, when it rains heavily, you don't get the big influx of water. It will filter it in at a certain speed.
Yeah.
So then it doesn't then overwhelm any pumping stations that they might have on the site.
yeah.
So it
just controls it better, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Retains
just,
the water.
Yeah, it slows
down.
it down to a point so it doesn't overpower. Say mainly if there's a pumping station on site, because that's calculated for every toilet and every sink times whatever. But if all the rainwater's going in, they really can't work that number out, because it will just burn out at a pump. The pump won't be able to take it, so they it has to filter it in at a certain. We just have to slow it down, basically, so it's not overwhelming it.
Yeah, so again, a lot of it's down to installation methods, making sure it's done correctly, make sure the pipe's at the top, the water fills up, and then again, it extracts it again. So we've covered a lot on the new build side of things in terms of drainage, jetting it, pumping it, servicing it. Let's get across onto the existing systems, because you spoke just briefly there about a dual system.
Yeah.
One thing that we don't do now in the UK is we don't install as many dual systems as what we did way back.
Yeah.
They are separate systems. Talk about a dual system.
Well, a dual system is exactly what it says. It's or a combined system. So you get basically for example, at the back of a house, your toilet, your toilet, your kitchen sink, your dishwasher, your washing machine will normally all go into the same system. Especially in our neck of the woods, the old systems used to have everything coming out the back of the house, and then the rainwater pipes coming like a downstack at the back would then naturally tap in. So you'd have all your toilets coming out, all your foul coming out, and then you'd also get your rainwater going in, and then that would go into sort of the alleyway at the back of the house.
Yeah.
And then it would all go to the same. It would all go to the same pumping station. They've sort of stopped that now. Not on everyone, but a lot have, especially on the new builds. They have a foul system. If they're not going to soak away, they have the surface water going down the road or in the road, and the foul going down the road, all completely independent. The older systems, they basically didn't want to run. Well, they didn't have to run. Everything went the same way. So it helped keep your drains cleaner.
Yeah.
If you did have a blockage and it rained, it'd show itself, because if the chambers are blocked and it rained, it would fill the chamber up, and then it would all come out into your garden. So
Interesting.
yes.
Nice smells.
Yes, only when you get used to it. But we come across lots and lots of different systems, because we do lots and lots of different sites, and that it's easier on the new ones because you've got a little map, you've got a site plan telling you where everything goes, and if you might find an extra chamber that they've had to put in for a certain bend, but the older sites you can normally, but on some sites you have a combined system and you also have a soakaway. You have one downpipe going at the side of your back door going into the foul.
Yeah.
and then the other downpipe at the other end of the house going into your garden,
Into soakaway.
into a soakaway. So you can't just assume that it's always the same.
So there's our lesson. You can't just assume one size fits all.
Yeah, because different sites, different houses. It's whatever they felt like doing at the time, especially old school houses.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I mean, we can speak from experience. The cost of a survey isn't really going to break the bank, is it?
no.
So
And
how would we, let's say hypothetically, we're going to go and buy a home and we're now aware of this. When would be the first time to engage you guys to get you out into a survey?
basically, if you're interested in buying a house and you get all your other surveys done, people check the electrics, people check the roof, people check the
Condition of house.
woodworm.
Anything they can see.
Anything they can see. The thing is, if you buy that house and you've got a fault in the drains, or I'd say, if you've already paid for all the other surveys, you do get some surveys that will lift the chamber lid up and they look in the chamber. That isn't particularly good enough.
The visual check of the manhole.
Yeah, because the manhole looks all right,
Yeah.
but
You don't know if there's a tree root going and
you can
popped it
see that bit. So the important bit is the bits you can't see,
Yeah.
because you don't have a camera in the back at hand to do it. So
So is it fair to say then we'd probably, I mean, again, obviously from us, but we know we're committing to buying it.
yeah,
Right at that 11th hour before we exchange, we say, hey, get the guys out and let's do a drainage survey quick.
yeah, because if you had somebody else doing a survey and it needed a new roof, you can negotiate that into the price of the house.
Yeah.
If that needed 5 drain repairs from the house to the back to where it goes off boundary,
Yeah.
you should be able to negotiate that into the price as well, because that would, it's nowhere near the price of a roof,
Yeah.
but it's still,
Well, it's a costly do.
you're
potentially
inheriting
get
a problem.
digger. Yeah. So before we go on to commercial, industrial, because there's some interesting stories there, right? You spoke about boundaries. So new homes, new builds today,
Yeah.
again, we've established they are different designs to what the traditional house builds were. I'm going to say the word head of drain. Okay, so
Yeah.
how would anybody know you've bought a typical, I don't know, mid-terraced or 3-bedroom, semi-detached, kind of, I don't know, somewhere 5-10 miles close to the city centre, traditional build, how would anybody know who's responsible for the drains in the back garden? Without getting you out, obviously, telling them.
You can't really, well, you can tell if you've got a chamber in your garden and you are the only one. So if you can open your chamber in the garden and your house is the only one that goes into that chamber, and then it'll disappear down the garden, but you are the only one going into it, then that chamber, from where it comes out of your house to where it meets that chamber, is your responsibility.
So from the toilet stack, the toilets,
Yeah.
all the way down, out on the outside pipe, 4-inch pipe, out the back of the house, underground, into that chamber, that would be the homeowner's responsibility.
Yes. Ish.
Is
If that chamber then goes straight into
public sewer.
to a public sewer,
Yeah.
it's your responsibility to the public sewer. If it goes from your door
Yeah.
to a chamber,
Yeah.
from that chamber to another chamber,
Yeah.
but then 2 other houses go into the second chamber.
Yeah.
When it leaves that chamber, it then becomes water authority because it becomes a shared drain.
Shared drain. Yeah.
So if you've got a blockage at your end, then it's yours.
Your responsibility.
If you've got a blockage from second chamber out, it's water authority, depending on where you are.
Yeah.
So it could be Yorkshire Water, Severn Trent, all the other ones. So then you'd call a local company, like you probably would, because the local water authority will if you ring them first, they will tell you straight away who. They'll tell you who's it belonged to.
They're like this.
Yeah, well, not really, because they'd have to come out and do it for free.
Yeah.
Because it's a shared drain. If it only goes your house and it's blocked, and the second chamber is empty, then it's the homeowners.
Yeah.
Because it's not in their bit. A lot of the time they'll come out and tell you this, and while they're there, they might do it.
Yeah.
Because they need to
Keep it working.
Yeah, if they don't know, it's normally because it hasn't blocked up yet. So if they go, yeah, it's yours. It's because it's already been on record. A lot of the time they'll just come out and go, yeah, it's not yours, and they might do it, they might not. It's worth a gamble.
Yeah, yeah. So to mitigate the risk, really, it'd be if you're going to buy a property, get each range survey just quickly. It takes nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a couple £100 or whatever it may be. If it's a smaller property, if it's a bigger property, obviously cost apply. But I suppose the smart thing to do is before you exchange, get them surveyed.
Yeah, it's a pre-adoption survey. So you get it's like a pre-check. So the surveys don't take long because it's only a short survey, and there's normally not. Don't get me wrong, the bigger the house, the more it takes. But I would never. I know I'm biased because I've got the equipment to do it, but I have never bought a property without surveying it first.
Snap.
And either because we do a lot for people selling the house, preempting it. So we'll survey it independently, give them the report. So when they sell the house, it goes with the gas safe.
Yeah.
They go with the
new owner.
Yeah, so they have it and go, everything's fine.
Yeah.
And it's just to...
It's to mitigate them coming back.
Yeah, so it means it covers you to say, I know there's nothing wrong with it. So if you say there is...
You must have done it.
Yeah.
No, that's great. Okay, so we've covered a drains, things like that. It's slightly confusing if you're not into it. What I would say is obviously get to a drainage expert who kind of give you a bit of a head steer.
Yeah.
To kind of, for the avoidance of doubt, just speak to the drainage guys. Makes more sense. Get into commercial then. Why is that world so different? Where do you start?
Yeah, it's just commercial as in... What sort of commercial? As in...
I mean, when we start talking industrial, that's a different kettle of fish because you've got your roadways, your sewers, things like that. Because you've got we've not even spoke about the armadillo, you've got the little R2-D2 machine.
Oh, the crawler?
Yeah.
It's
an impressive bit of kit. I mean, the domestic scene wouldn't necessarily see the crawler, right?
No, it depends what size pipe. So a lot of the older properties would have... like the ones in the road, they always get bigger and bigger. So normally coming out of a house, rule of thumb, it's 100 mil of old school 4-inch.
The pipe, we're talking about pipes.
Yeah, pipe work. So yeah, that's normally the size that comes out of a property. So then that will then drop into a 6-inch and so on and so on. And occasionally you get a surface water coming down the end of your garden. It might be a 300, like a 12-inch pipe.
Yeah.
So you could potentially have anything over a 6-inch pipe, 9-inch pipe, depending on how long it is, depending on what camera you put in.
Yeah.
So a lot of the new build sites, all the road sections are always a crawler. So this is a 6-wheeled robot, basically, with a camera on it that drives.
You've proper played that down. It's a decent bit of kit.
Yeah,
it's a decent bit of kit.
As a childish bloke, it's quite cool, yeah. It's a toy. It's a big, expensive toy, but it's one of them.
It's a remote control car with a camera on it. It's amazing.
Well, it's got like a 250 meter cable, so it can. And to be fair, there is some drainage wise, there is some amazing pieces of kit.
Yeah,
there really is. But you have to do the job correctly. You have to buy the right toys. So if you're doing civils, somebody would spend 60 grand on a digger. And it looks the part, and it's big, and it's a digger, and it looks like you've got 60 grand's worth of digger. But you could spend that on a camera that will literally go and fold away. Like you take it to bits and you put it in, and it looks nothing. But it is 40 to 50 grand's worth of gear. But you can drive that down a 300 to a 2 meter pipe. But that's big pipes taking lots of water. So some of the new build sites we're doing now, because of the rain we're getting and the surface water we're getting now, some of the pipes are. I think we were in Scarborough a couple of months ago, and they were 2.4, so nearly 2.5 meters wide.
Wow.
And
I mean, a man can stand in that, right?
We had to walk down them to survey it. So
How does that feel?
it's quite cool, to be fair.
Does it smell?
No, because it's rainwater, it's surface water. So yeah, it's full of frogs, and it depends on how great it.
Rats?
But no, we didn't see any. But you can get them. But you have to be. It's your training, so you all have to be confined space trained. You have to be. The qualifications I put my guys through to do that is quite specialised in itself, and the equipment and the safety equipment. So it's not just domestic work is minimal risk, not minimal equipment, but all the equipment's still 20 grand.
Yeah.
But the bigger pipes you go, the bigger your toys get, and it's a different day out. If I'm honest, it's quite an entertaining. We don't do it very often, that size anyway. But we could do 3,000-4,000 meters of crawler work.
Wow.
So we did one, and it was 12 kilometers of site. So it's
decent size.
Miles of size, and then 3, 4, 5 a month on site. So
Just getting steps in now.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, the crawler is a very, very cool piece of kit, and we very rarely use that on domestic, except when we're on new build sites, when we go from domestic with one camera, and then that goes into the road.
Yeah.
The road, then the pipes are bigger, so we have to go bigger toys, bigger wheels, and because you can't physically push that by hand, that's why it drives itself.
Right.
So all the cool stuff that you like to look at,
Yeah, obviously.
is like it's for the big pipes.
I know it's expensive, obviously, but it's great insight to obviously some of the kit that you actually stock.
Yeah.
I mean, I know you carry a lot of expensive kit, but for what you do, again, it's necessities, right? So let's talk a little bit about the maintenance side of things. So we've talked about obviously what types there are in what sort of scenarios, sectors, things like that. General maintenance. Should a homeowner who has nothing, no building works, no nothing, should they be maintaining their drains annually, 6 monthly, 2 years? What?
Well, the most common answer is that is no, but people will only fix something that it
When
needs
it's broke.
fixing, and to a point, I do agree with that. If you've got, say, a multi-let, and the houses are designed, it was in its first life.
Yeah.
It was one family, 3 bedrooms, and then now in its new life, it's got more tenants in it, and the pipework's been changed a little bit. I'd always say they need to, at least to be inspected, annually, probably once a year.
So let's elaborate on this then, because we know multi-lets. For those who don't know, it could be something like House of Multiple Occupation, or it could be a block of flats. If, hypothetically, we've got a 3-bed detached house, and we now choose to change the original design, and we're in a very luxurious position where we can now add a side story extension, a whole rear story extension, and we've added 2 more bedrooms, and then we've added a utility and a kitchen. We've expanded it a little bit. We've now added a lot more resources, including adding additional roof space. We've now changed that design from its original intended use. What we're talking about maintenance there, is that something really we should be looking at?
I'd have said so. What we get a lot of, and it is more so over the last few years because multi-lets became quite a popular thing. And not the people who are in there, because it is a multi-let, you don't know what next door is doing, you don't know what the guy downstairs is doing, or the person that it's a lot more going on. So if it is if you've got one owner owning the property and you've got 5 unhappy tenants because it's blocked. To maintain that, you might catch a blockage, it might take 30 seconds to clear.
Yeah.
But if you don't catch that at the right time, that could take an hour to clear, 2 hours to clear.
Yeah.
Worst case scenario, the poor person on the bottom floor is not having a very good time of it because it's on the bottom floor. So if you could prevent that. So I think routine maintenance on that sort of building I'd recommend, because there's a lot more factors going on.
Yeah.
So it's like 5 families living in there or 5 people living in there.
Yeah.
The run-of-the-mill house, what we find is washing powder is very restrictive. It sticks to the inside of the pipe. It makes the flow not very good.
Yeah.
And that is the only way to get that off, is to basically put a jetting hose down, like we described before, different head, and that will then peel off the...
There's like that skin.
Yeah, well, we call it fog.
Oh, nice.
Fat, oil and grease when he was surveying, because it sticks to the outside of the pipe.
Wait there. Say that one more time, just the way you said it.
Fog.
Fog, and it means what?
Fat, oil, grease.
Love that. Fog. Fog
So
and drains, I like it.
Basically, we'll then remove that and then put that pipe back up to its original diameter. So it's like having a clogged heart up, like when you have a bad heart.
Yeah.
Arteries get clogged. Difference is you can't jet them. We can jet these. So basically, it will then put the flow back up to its original. So that, depending again, how big is the house, how much the washing powder is, dishwasher tablets are always a good one. And then everything else gets clogged up. So we'll just then descale that or degunk it, basically. So then every couple of years, I'd say. It's not one of the things that you do 2 or 3 times a year.
Yeah.
If you start having issues a couple of times a year, you just get it cleaned and see how you get on. We normally put the camera in while we're there just to make sure you haven't got a displacement or you haven't got anything stuck in there. Because we found all sorts, kids' toys, all sorts of stuff.
I can imagine. Well, one thing we haven't spoke about is, obviously, we've seen this when we do quite a lot of property purchases and we do see a bit of subsidence. 9 times out of 10, it's either from a drain that's dislodged or disconnected or a tree. Trees can cause subsidence, but they can also grow their roots through the existing drains. How often do you see that?
Weekly,
Wow.
daily.
So is this something then, again, stretching back to, before you actually acquire the property or exchange, hence why it's so important to have the survey? I mean...
Yeah, because if you buy a property and it's surrounded by trees, conifers, elandii, all ivy is a terrible one. So you get a lovely looking cottage.
Ivy.
It looks the part, it has ivy all over it, and it looks lovely. Ivy is so aggressive and it needs a lot of water to do what it does.
Yeah.
So if you've got a drain and you've got a slight gap on the joints, it will start off with a little tiny taproot going in. That will then get all the nutrients it wants out of the water, either clean or dirty water going past. And then it will get thicker and thicker and thicker. And the only time you'll realise that it's causing a blockage is when you've got one. And then we can then descale the pipe, either mechanically or with the jetters. And that will take off the root ball. And then it will give you, 6 months to a year before it does it again.
Right.
So ideally, it's when you cut a root off, if you don't fix that afterwards, then it's only a temporary fix.
It's going to do it again.
It will do it again. It's like when you cut your grass or cut a rose bush back, it will come back thicker. So there's only a couple of times you can do it before it starts coming back thicker, and then it will start weakening the pipe. So normally, if you've got root ingress in the chamber, the likelihood is you've got root ingress in the pipework that you can't see. So we have got all sorts of different tools that we can remove that with.
Yeah. Which we know work fantastic. So I'm going to go into a little bit differently now. So I'm going to focus more on homeowners.
Yep.
Are there any sort of like negative health impacts that can come from the back of, drains or things like that if you're not maintaining drains? You've got a blocked drain and you didn't fix the blocked drain. Is there any sort of like health effects that could come off the back of it?
I'm not sure about health, really.
Like the methane gases, things like that, will they?
No, not really. It's not that concentrated, the gases that will... It's more of the inconvenience is the biggest thing.
Right, okay.
Because, and if you need them toilets, or if you've got, like, especially kids, elderly, bungalows, if they block and you've only got, say you're a bungalow, for example, it's either going to come out into the garden. Again, that's not particularly nice.
Yeah.
And the inconvenience of it is if you've got one toilet in the house, like most people, then especially if you're not very mobile or you can't just pop across the neighbour and ask them, then it's the impact rather than it's the inconvenience of it. And obviously it's not particularly nice sometimes that when it is blocked. So we always try to prioritise somebody with a domestic house because they haven't got the luxury of
just sorting it
X amount of toilets to go and use.
Yeah.
They're literally in the crap.
It's not a nice job, is it? No. It's a messy job, as we know.
Yes.
Okay, so most common signs of a blocked drain?
Either the toilet filling up it sounds weird, but if it fills up, stays high for a little bit and then goes down really slowly, that is blocked. It is blocked somewhere. Or the other way, as in you flush it and all the water goes and there's no water in the pan.
Interesting.
So that's another block. That's another good sign.
Is that through suction?
Yeah, it's just the back pressure of other factors. So, but yeah, just obviously a smell. You might not get the smell, but it's normally a downstairs toilet or outside gullies will start gurgling, and then obviously it's if we catch it when the toilet's still up and down, it's either blocked at the toilet end or it's blocked at the chamber. Again, if we can get to a chamber, that's great.
Yeah.
We can't always get to the chamber, so we have to have different ways of doing it. But that just goes down to experience and
of course.
The right tools for the job. But
hence, get the experts for the expert's job.
Yeah, and a lot of people will put off-the-shelf cleaning products.
All right, well, let's go to preventative measures. What can the average homeowner do to prevent blocked drains?
Don't use wipes is the biggest thing. Don't flush sanitary ware and all the stuff where it says don't flush it, don't flush it. And even where it says do flush it, if it's not toilet roll, don't flush it. Water flow as well. Always try to use the bigger flush. It's always you need to get it away, whatever it may be. But wipes people use the baby wipes and then use the little flush. It might, if you're lucky, get out into the drain, but it's not going very far.
It's obvious, isn't it? Really, water's going to travel faster than the pipe.
Yeah, exactly. And if you do use like a drain unblocker that you can get very, very cheaply, one, I'd say don't use them. They're not very nice. If you get it on your skin, it's very dangerous things. It's got caustics. A lot of them has caustic soda in. So even if it does clear the blockage slightly, it's not doing the pipe work any good at all. And if you do call a drainage engineer, please tell them you've used it because
Go on.
it burns a lot. And again, even the equipment we have it can basically take the diamond cut glass and it can smear the glass on a camera head, and that's a lot of money. But mainly, the most important thing is it can burn the person who's working on it.
They get it on them.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think all of us have had a burn off it at one point, and it's not nice stuff.
Don't put it
Yeah,
down.
don't put it down.
Don't
please.
put it down.
Yeah, and if you do, let the guys know because it's not nice.
Not nice.
Yeah, not nice.
All right, so Steve, where can anybody find you if they need to have a chat with you about drains, block drains, jetting? Where can they find you?
Just Google us in Doncaster. It's just Google Yates's Jetting Doncaster or Block Drains Doncaster. And like I say, not you can Google any drainage engineer. There's a lot of good people out there.
Yeah.
Yorkshire Water are very approachable if you get stuck. They might tell you it's not their responsibility, but if you phone a local drainage engineer, they're all a good bunch. They put up with a lot of crap. So
Brilliant.
yeah. But if you want to find us, we're based in Doncaster and we work all over the place. But it's I'd say there's a lot of good people out there.
That's great. And again, thanks for popping in, sharing that knowledge with us.
Anytime.
Great stuff. Cheers.